Hey there. So picture this. It's 1927 in the heart of Shanghai, the most decadent, dangerous city on earth. A lavish banquet is underway, hosted by the city's most powerful gangster. The air is thick with opium smoke and the clink of champagne glasses. And at the head of the table, surrounded by ruthless men who've killed for their seats, sits a woman. She's in her 40s, with a calm, unreadable face. She doesn't say much. She doesn't have to. Because every single person in that room, from the warlord to the police chief, answers to her. They call her Ban, the boss's wife. But she was so much more. She was the pirate queen of Shanghai. Welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, The Rise and Fall. Today, we're leaving the gangsters of Chicago and the mafiosi of Sicily for the glittering, filthy maze of 1920 Shanghai. And we're meeting the woman who ruled its criminal underworld from the shadows, Mother Yuesheng. To understand her, you have to understand the world she mastered. Shanghai in the early 20th century was a city divided, literally, into sections controlled by foreign powers. This created a perfect ecosystem for crime, a place where laws were confused, borders were meaningless, and opportunity was everywhere. The Green Gang, a secret society with roots centuries old, rose to control it all: opium, prostitution, protection rackets, the docks. And at the top of the Green Gang sat the big three gangsters. The most famous of them was Yuesheng, and by his side was his wife, Shanghai. But we know her as Mother Du. Her story begins not in ballrooms, but in a brothel. She was born into poverty and sold into a high-class courtesan house as a young girl. This is where most stories of women in that era end. But for Shanghai, it was where her education began. In the salon of that brothel, she learned the most valuable skills imaginable: how to read men, how to navigate complex social politics, how to listen, and how to keep secrets. She wasn't just surviving. She was getting a PhD in human nature. And that's where she met Yuesheng, then a rising but rough-edged gangster. He saw her sharp mind. She saw his potential. Their marriage was, from the start, a strategic merger. And here's where Mother Du's reign truly began. Yuesheng had a problem. He had the muscle, he had the ambition, but to become the undisputed king of Shanghai, he needed legitimacy. He needed to move from the back alleys to the boardrooms, to rub shoulders with bankers, diplomats, and politicians. And he, with his thuggish demeanor, couldn't bridge that gap. But his wife could. Shanghai became his secret weapon. She transformed their home into Shanghai's most important salon. She mastered the art of the social ledger, hosting extravagant parties, remembering every birthday, every child's name, every financial trouble or secret shame of the city's elite. She distributed favors like currency. A police chief's son needs a job? Done. A banker's mistress needs discreet housing? Arranged. She built a vast network of social debt that was far stronger than any threat of violence. She became the gang's chief diplomat and its chief financial officer. While Yuesheng was the fearsome public face, she was the one balancing the books, laundering the opium money through legitimate businesses they acquired: banks, shipping companies, casinos. She had a mind for numbers that terrified their accountants. And she wielded a different kind of power. The gangsters of the Green Gang, these brutal, hardened men, started calling her Shanghai, Mother. It was a title of immense respect and a little fear. She settled their disputes, advised on their family matters, and yes, decided their fates. If Mother Du turned against you, you knew the boss's wrath would soon follow. She was the matriarch of a vast, violent family. But no reign in the underworld lasts forever. The crucible for Mother Du's empire was the Japanese invasion in 1937. Shanghai fell into chaos. Yuesheng fled to Hong Kong to avoid collaborating with the Japanese. And who was left behind to manage the entire, sprawling, dangerous empire? Shanghai. For years, she held the fortress. She negotiated with the Japanese occupiers, who desperately wanted to use the Green Gang's infrastructure. She played a dangerous double game, maintaining enough cooperation to keep the gang alive, while secretly funneling money and information to the resistance. It was a tightrope walk over a pit of tigers, and she did it without flinching. This period cemented her legend. She was no longer just the boss's wife. She was the acting boss, the pirate queen holding her city under impossible pressure. I think about her story a lot from my apartment here in New York. As an engineer and entrepreneur, I'm fascinated by systems, how they're built, how they're optimized, how they fail. What Yuesheng did was the ultimate entrepreneurial pivot. She took the limited, brutal business model of a gang and systematized it. She understood that raw power is fragile, but power embedded in social capital, in financial networks, in perceived indispensability, that's resilient. She engineered stability into a fundamentally unstable enterprise. She wasn't just leveraging her husband's power. She was creating her own parallel power structure, one built on relationships and ruthless pragmatism. The fall, when it came, wasn't from a rival gang or a police raid. It was from history itself. In 1949, the Communist Party won the Chinese Civil War. For the Green Gang, the party was over. The new regime had a zero-tolerance policy for the corruption and vice the Dus embodied. Yuesheng fled to Hong Kong. Yuesheng, ever the pragmatist, made a different calculation. She stayed behind in Shanghai, believing her social connections and the fact that she was, after all, just a woman, might protect her. She was wrong. The new authorities saw her clearly. They saw the architect, the strategist. She was arrested, paraded through the streets, and sentenced to re-education. The pirate queen of Shanghai spent her final years in obscurity, a ghost of the decadent past the new China was erasing. She died in 1957, her once formidable name a footnote, her vast network of debt and favor evaporated by revolution. So, what's the takeaway from the rise and fall of Mother Du? It's that the most powerful person in the room isn't always the one making the most noise. True influence often lives in the quiet calculus, in the remembered detail, in the social glue that holds even a kingdom of criminals together. She built an empire on understanding what people needed before they even knew it themselves, and then being the only one who could provide it. That's a kind of power that outlasts bullets, at least for a while, until the world itself changes. Thanks for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed diving into the shadowy corners of history with me, make sure you're subscribed to Underworld Kings wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with a friend who loves a good, true story. This is Ibnul J. Farabi for Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious.